All right, this is going to be my week 2 preseason power rankings here for the 2024 NFL season. Let's get started. So at number 32, we will have the Carolina Panthers. They lost their preseason game 17-3 versus the Patriots. Not a whole lot of things going good for them. They did have Jordan Matthews and Amir Smith-Marset, who looked pretty decent, so maybe they could be solid players for them, but overall, it was just not a good look for them in their first preseason game. Number 31 here is going to be the New England Patriots. Again, they just played the Panthers, so not a whole lot of good things are going to happen. Even if you played good, you played the Panthers, so it is what it is. Joe Milton, though, I will say, looked like the best quarterback for the Patriots in this game. That's definitely something worth noting, because right now, it's been only one preseason game, but right now he would be my pick to be the starter for the Patriots this season. They also did cut Juju Smith-Schuster, which that definitely think hurts their receiving core a little bit. Number 30 is going to be the New York Giants. They did win their preseason game 14-3 versus the Lions, but overall their offense did not look great. Drew Lock was 4 of 10 for only 17 yards and 1 interception, so overall not the best performance from their quarterbacks. Their running back Eric Gray was amazing with 98 yards and 2 total touchdowns himself. But their offense as a whole, quarterbacks obviously a big part of their team. They did not look very good. Number 29 will be the Minnesota Vikings. They're actually going to fall one spot, mainly because it was just recently announced that T.J. Hawkinson will miss about 8 or so games, still recovering from injury from last season, and J.J. McCarthy tore his meniscus, and it is going to be undetermined how much he'll miss of the regular season. It could be as little as 1 to 2 games, or as much as even 8 to 10 games or something. Just a big question marks there surrounding J.J. McCarthy. Number 28 is going to be the Arizona Cardinals. Their preseason game was pretty good for them. I mean, they lost 16-14 versus the Saints, but they had some good bright spots. Michael Carter was pretty good for them. Receiver Dan Chesney, I don't know who that is, but he had 63 receiving yards, so he looked pretty solid for them in their preseason game. They also did sign Hassan Hall this week. Number 27 is going to be the Las Vegas Raiders. This week was not the best week for them in preseason. They ended up losing 3 versus the Vikings. It was actually a pretty close game. Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell both looked pretty solid. Trey Tucker was really good for them with 73 receiving yards. Jacoby Myers had 45 receiving yards as well. So some good pieces out of this game for the Raiders. The 26 will be the Denver Broncos. Bo Nix looked absolutely incredible in this preseason game. 15-21, 125 yards, 1 touchdown. He was really good. Zach Wilson was also pretty good in this game. Jarrett Stidham, however, was pretty bad, but when you have 2 other quarterbacks that played pretty solid, you don't really care about Jarrett Stidham anymore. Number 25 is going to be the Washington Commanders. They have a lot of things going on here. They did lose their preseason game 20-17 versus the New York Jets. Their quarterbacks did not play great. Jaden Daniels played pretty solid. He only threw 3 passes, but he was good in his limited reps. Their backups did not do very good themselves. Sam Hartman was all right, but Jeff Driscoll was pretty bad. They also did Bryant this week, which could be interesting. He hasn't played in a while in the NFL. He was in the XFL, I believe, 2023, but overall, I don't think he's going to be a very big piece of this team. I doubt he even makes the actual roster. Number 24 is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're going to stay at this spot. They lost their preseason game 20-12. They did not play Russell Wilson, so their starting quarterback, at least presumably their starting quarterback, did not play. So not really a whole lot to take away from this game. Did want to say that Scotty Miller and Dez Fitzpatrick, 2 receivers there, both did pretty solid, so that gives you a little bit more hope about their receiving core. They're also in the front runners in the sweepstakes to land Brandon Ayuk, which would definitely bump them up a few spots if they did that. Number 23 is going to be the New Orleans Saints. They have a couple different waivers you got to worry about here. They cut 2 different tight ends in Mason Fairchild and Tommy Hudson. They also cut Marquez Callaway, so you cut a couple people in the receiving group there, but not a huge deal. Derek Carr in this game did not look very good himself. Spencer Rattler did look pretty solid, as well as Jake Hayner. But yeah, when your starting quarterback does not do great, not a great look for you in this preseason game. But overall, A.T. Perry, one of the receivers, he had 85 receiving yards on only 4 receptions, so that was a very good look for this offense. Number 22 is going to be the Indianapolis Colts. This week they did lose a center, Wesley French, on IR now for the rest of the season. They played 5 different quarterbacks in this game. All of them played pretty decent. It'll be interesting to see who's going to be the QB3 because the top 2 should be locked up between Anthony Richardson and Joe Flacco. Then they got guys like Sam Ehlinger, Jason Bean, and Caden Slovis. I would assume Ehlinger has the upper hand there, but I could definitely see it being either one of those 3 guys for QB3. Number 21 is going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars. They made a couple good signings, I would say. They signed Breeland Speaks, who was been in the NFL before. He was pretty good with the Michigan Panthers in the UFL last season. They signed safety Tashawn Gibson, and they also lost a corner and a defensive end to injury. So they signed a D end and a secondary guy, and they lost a secondary guy and a D end for them. Number 20 here is going to be the Cleveland Browns. They traded for Nick Harris, a center, so maybe that could help their offensive line a little bit. They also, did not play Deshaun Watson in this game, but Jameis Winston looked pretty solid, as well as Tyler Huntley and Dorian Thompson-Robinson. So all 3 of their backup quarterbacks played pretty good, which is definitely a good sign. Also they had a couple of defensive guys, get 7 and 5 tackles respectively, which is pretty good for preseason. Number 19 is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They lost 1 offensive lineman for the rest of the season. They did not play any of their starters really this week. Kyle Trask was not very good. John Wolford was the other backup quarterback. He was better than Trask for sure. They had a couple of running backs that were pretty solid. Sean Tucker had 68 yards. Bucky Irvin had a touchdown here. So a couple of good pieces on the offense, but overall not a lot of movement here. Number 18 is going to be the Atlanta Falcons. This week for the Falcons, Rondale Moore was injured. Is injured for the whole season now. That's obviously a pretty big loss. They also got Braylon Trice, their rookie, is going to be injured for the rest of the season as well. They did sign Jakeem Grant and Harrison Hand, a corner, so maybe that could help them a little bit. But those are 2 big pieces I think that would be good for this team that they no longer have. Number 17 is going to be the Green Bay Packers. They had a solid preseason game. Jordan Love was really good. Dontavian Wicks had like a 65-yard receiving touchdown. So pretty good moves, or a pretty good showing for their offense here in preseason. Definitely gives me a little bit more hope coming into the regular season. Number 16 is going to be the Tennessee Titans. They didn't have any signings or anything. They played Will Levis in this game, like a possession or so. He had 35 yards on 4 or 5 passing. He also had a rushing touchdown as well, so pretty good there. Tony Pollard actually did have 46 rushing yards as well, so some good looks here from their offense. Number 15, going to be the Los Angeles Chargers. They did not play Justin Herbert. They played, some of their other quarterbacks and lost 16-3 in the preseason game. They had a couple of good looks. Wide receiver Simi Fehoko looked solid. Jalen Johnson, a wide receiver, also looked solid. And they had a linebacker, Nick Neiman, who had 9 tackles, which was the most tackles out of any player this week in preseason. Number 14, here is going to be the Seattle Seahawks. So for them, they had a couple of guys that they lost. They cut D tackle Rodney Matthews, lost a wide receiver Marcus Sims. He was a pretty good UFL guy last year, and also lost another D tackle in Matthew Godel. And they traded away center Nick Harris to the Cleveland Browns. So they lost 4 different players here this week. They didn't gain anybody. They did play solid in their preseason game, but again, their starters really did not play. Number 13 here is going to be the Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams looked really good in this game. He had 95 yards passing and only a couple of drives that he even played, so that was really good to see from him. They absolutely dominated the Bills here, 33-6. They had a lot of good players all around in this game. Definitely makes me feel a little bit higher going to the Bears, coming into this regular season for the Bears, even though I was already pretty high on them. Number 12 is going to be the Miami Dolphins. They lost a couple of guys here for the rest of the season, a tackle, a D-end, and another linebacker. So they lost 3 guys here to season-ending injuries, but they also did play pretty solid here in the preseason game. They didn't play their starters, but they had a couple other backup running backs in Jalen Wright and Chris Brooks, who both played really solid, even though their starting 2 running backs in Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane are already pretty good. Number 11 here is going to be the Los Angeles Rams. They had a pretty solid game here against the Cowboys. It was kind of a slugfest. Both teams did not really do a lot on offense. Stetson Bennett had 4 interceptions in this game, but then he had a really good touchdown pass at the end of the fourth quarter to end up, giving them the go-ahead touchdown to win the game. So we kind of redeemed himself a little bit there, but overall, still definitely some issues there for Stetson Bennett. They did not play any of their starters this game, so there can't really be a whole lot of takeaways here for the Rams. Number 10 is going to be the New York Jets. They signed running back Deion Jackson and a linebacker, Anthony Hines. They also lost another linebacker in Jimmy Ciarlo. So they swapped linebackers and they added another running back. Didn't really play their starters here in this game, but they had a couple good looks here. Running back Israel Abadikonda was pretty good with 25 yards and a touchdown. A rookie running back Braylon Allen had 54 yards. A wide receiver Brandon Smith had 70 yards. So a couple of good players here on offense here for the Jets is definitely a good look going into the regular season. Number 9 here is going to be the Detroit Lions. They lost 14-3 versus the Giants. They did not really play their starters either. So there can't really be a whole lot of takeaways. They did lose a couple guys here to season-ending injuries, being a defensive end, Nate Lynn, and an offensive tackle, Connor Galvin. That's why they're going to move down here one spot. Number 8 here is going to be the Buffalo Bills. They had a couple different things going on here this week. They lost 2 wide receivers and a quarterback, and then they gained 2 wide receivers and a quarterback. They signed Ben DiNucci, Damari Bird, and Deon Cain, and they lost Chase Claypool, Shane Buechele, and Tavon Austin. We're going to move them up one spot, even though they played horrible in their preseason game. It's just that, that's just kind of the way things fell. Number 7 here is going to be the Cincinnati Bengals, because they played pretty decent here this week. They lost 17-14 versus the Bucs, but when their starters were in, like Joe Burrow was in for a little bit, he had 51 yards and a touchdown, looked really good. That a couple other guys that were pretty solid. Also, a wide receiver, Jermaine Burton, had 82 yards and a touchdown, looking like he could really be a key wide receiver here for the Cincinnati Bengals, which they desperately need. Number 6 is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles. They played pretty good in their preseason game here. They won 16-13 versus the Ravens. Did not play their starters. Kenny Pickett was pretty solid in this game with 89 yards and a touchdown. They had a couple wide receiver. John Ross was pretty solid. Will Shipley, running back, was pretty good. So a couple of good pieces there for their offense as well. Number 5 is going to be the Dallas Cowboys. They had a couple different things going on. They cut a wide receiver. They traded for Andrew Booth here from the Minnesota Vikings, I do believe. So that's definitely a good move for them to help out their defense. And they lost offensive lineman Chuma Edoga, could miss a couple games of the regular season. Number 4 here is going to be the Houston Texans. They won 20-12 versus the Pittsburgh Steelers here in their preseason game. C.J. Stroud played one drive. He was pretty solid. They had a lot of good players actually in this game. Tank Dell had a 34-yard touchdown in his limited time. Robert Woods was good. Rookie tight end Cade Stover was good. And Cam Akers had almost 50 yards he rushing in this game. So a lot of good pieces here for their offense. Makes me really feel like this Texans team is going to be really good this season. Number 3 is going to be the Baltimore Ravens. They lost 16-13 versus the Eagles. They did not really play any of their starters at all, so not a whole lot of takeaways to go. Josh Johnson, their backup QB, was pretty bad. They also had another guy, Devin Leary, who was a little bit better, but still not very good showings from their backup quarterback this week. Number 2 is going to be the San Francisco 49ers. They have a lot of signings and injuries and stuff. They signed Jontre Kirkland, wide receiver. They signed Robbie Anderson. They also cut a wide receiver in Malik Turner. They cut a tight end in Logan Thomas. And then a couple different lineman changes as well. But overall, it kind of all evens itself out. I do think they made some good moves, signing Jontre Kirkland and Robbie Anderson, but also I thought that a guy like Logan Thomas would have been a good, solid tight end for this team as well. So not really a whole lot of, different thinking about the Niners after this week. Number 1, of course, is still going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. One of the biggest question marks is the severity of Hollywood Brown's injury. It could be, they're saying like he could miss 1 to 2 games. He could miss 6 or 7 or so, or even more than that potentially. So, once we get an official word on that, which will probably not be till my next power ranking video next week, I'm not really going to move him a whole lot just because we don't really know what is going to happen. But in this game, they lost 26-13 versus the Jags. Their starters were good in their limited time they had, and their other guys, Nico Vermigia was pretty good, and running back Carson Steele was pretty good. So that is going to be it for the video. Thank you for watching. Make sure to check back next week for an updated power rankings list. And I did realize during this video that my camera here now that I have kind of covers up some things on the screen, so I'll move that around for next week's video, but I'm not actually going to redo this video. Apologize for that.